provision to reward compensation like this. Chakrabarti, Supreme Court, by quoting 13 judgments, they allowed the petition. They say interest is also an excess amount retained by the state. That's the money which
utilized by the state.
Utilized by the state, the money which should have been given to the taxpayer, you did not give it. They allowed the interest, notwithstanding the fact that there was no provision under Income Tax Act to award this kind of interest, and same case is here. We have almost identical language which was interpreted by Supreme Court. Therefore, 60 days, जहां भी आपको 7 दिन के बाद refund जो भी आपका इंटरेस्ट बनता है, move a petition. उसके scientific issue कोर्ट करोगे, we want interest on interest, and follow it up. क्लाइंट से बात करो ना, तो भैया 10% लेंगे, अब तेरा कैसे कमाओ लेजिटिमेटली, और इनके फरिश्ते भी इंटरेस्ट देंगे आपको. They have no way out except to give you interest. The interest has to be automatic with the refund. They don't give. Once there is a circular in the board, it is binding on the revenue authorities. It may not be binding on me and the courts, but it is binding on the revenue officers. लेकिन हम डरते हैं नहीं यार, वो क्लाइंट ना भाग जाए, कोई झगड़ा ना हो जाए.
अलग दिल्ली हाईकोर्ट ने रिपीटेडली कहा इंटरेस्ट के ऊपर, यहाँ तक कह दिया कि सैलरी में से काट दो.
Bhatia Saab did a case on interest few years ago in Delhi High Court, which shook the department. It was the first case he did under section 30 or 31 of Delhi Sales Tax Act on interest. जहाँ पे इंटरेस्ट बनता है, एक सिंपल ड्राफ्ट एप्लीकेशन हम डाल देते हैं व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में. कॉपी टू कमिश्नर, कॉपी टू जोनल इंचार्ज, या कॉपी टू द प्रॉपर ऑफिसर. इंटरेस्ट दो, उसके लिखो इंटरेस्ट पे इंटरेस्ट लेंगे हम आपसे, जहाँ दे दो हम कोर्ट में क्लेम करेंगे. बट यू हैप्पी कि आपको जो 5-10,000 20,000 रिश्वत के बनाने बना लिया, बात खत्म होगी, दैन डिफरेंट बॉल के. मेरे केस में इन्होंने इंटरेस्ट नहीं दिया, मूव द ट्रिब्यूनल. आई टोल्ड मिस्टर जिंदल कि आई वांट इंटरेस्ट ऑन इंटरेस्ट, आई विल टू आर्ग्यू दिस मैटर देना पड़ेगा. तो कहते सुप्रीम कोर्ट में था, वो सुप्रीम कोर्ट डोंट बॉदर. हमारे केस पे ये नहीं है, इट्स ओनली अ स्टेट particular judgment. It has no connection with my case. So 54, are you question answer?
Sir, he said 60 days starts from the date of the complaint, not of filing online.
Friend of all of us. Again, chapter 15, demand and recovery. Any demand of tax, interest, penalty or recovery can be done only through this chapter. Section 122 के penalty, 129 के penalties, they only authorize levy of penalty that will be recovered here through section 75, which we'll do later. Determination of tax not paid or short paid, fraud or any willful misstatement or suppression of tax. Imagine in the marginal heading, they have used the word or 4 times. 4 times word or is used in marginal heading. This means each of these ground is independent. Here or can never be read as and. Each of such ground is available to the authorities to invoke 73 and puts you to a pre-consultative notice and then followed by a show cause notice. We don't pay as per pre-consultative notice. Now read carefully, we all know the words now. Where it appears to the proper officer. What is appears? It is his subjective satisfaction. He doesn't have to put on record some legitimate reasons कि आपका बनता है. It appears कि डॉक्टर राहुल कक्कर ने कोई हेराफेरी की है, वर्मा जी की क्लास अटेंड करके कहीं गड़बड़ किया है इन्होंने अपने टैक्स में, तो सपना आ गया कि इसको नोटिस भेजना. Where it appears, the word appears means it is not final. It is his subjective satisfaction कि कहीं कुछ गड़बड़ है. I must inquire into it. Where it appears to the proper officer. Go back to section 293. Go back. उस दिन हमने किया था, but now it's more important to do it. 291, I'm sorry. 2 subsection 91. Now you know how to read definition. Proper officer in relation to any function to be performed under this act. So wherever the word proper officer has been used under this act, this is the definition. Means, it's a means definition. The commissioner or the officer of the central tax who is assigned that function by the commissioner in the board. It's a central act. Delhi GST में अलग language है, but this is the meaning of proper officer. That is, if you get a notice, you have to see whether it is signed by the proper officer for that particular notice. That's a pecuniary jurisdiction or some approvals are required. We will discuss when we go through it. But this is very important. Where it appears to the proper officer that any tax has not been paid. First ground, tax has not been paid. Supposing you claim certain to be exempt supplies, ये tax free है or the non-taxable. I was giving you example of a whiskey of water blue level with a Mont Blanc pan. It becomes a mixed supply. Mixed supply doesn't talk of two taxable supplies. It talks of two supplies. My opinion was it will be taxed. You go to court, only court will give you relief. It's a mixed supply. It's an opinion. Court may differ. Now, you treat this as exempt supply for whatever reason. So their tax has not been paid. He can give you a notice. Or what again is what? Not been paid or short paid. आपने बोला मेरा परचेज 5% पे, आपने 5% कर दिया. I told you input output have no direct relationship, they are inverse relationship. अगर आउटपुट टैक्स आपका 12% था, किसी ने आपको 5% में बेचा है तो आपने 7% शॉर्ट पे किया है. He can again short paid means this. Short paid also means कि रिटर्न में आपका 10 रुपए था, आपने 8 रुपए पेमेंट किया. That is also short paid tax. Though I think GST में it's not possible. Possible है. GST में possible नहीं है.
System mute.
Short paid or erroneously refunded. अब सपोजिंग सेक्शन 54 में आपने एप्लीकेशन फाइल की, RFD 01, आपने जो भी कुछ हुआ, 7 दिन में आपको रिफंड ऑर्डर मिल गया. आपने किसी ज्वाइंट कमिश्नर को 50,000 रुपए देके सारा साहब को एंगेज करके आपने रिफंड ले लिया. हमारे गवर्नमेंट को तो दूसरा रिफंड दे दिया, डरता है तो सारा साहब से. अब आगे बाद में मिस्टर भाटिया एज ऑफिसर, साला सारा चोरी का रिफंड है, आप रिकवर करो. तारा साहब की चली भी नहीं, प्रॉब्लम है थोड़ी. Anyway, just a latter moment, please don't mind. So, what is the word of erroneously? It doesn't mean only by mistake. Erroneous is a much bigger word than by mistake. Erroneous means for any ABC reason, the amount was refunded to you. It can be mistake of the proper officer. उसकी गलत इंटरप्रिटेशन हो सकती है, कोई जजमेंट के खिलाफ हो सकता है, और आपका कोलूजन हो सकता है. All these factors are covered in erroneously refunded. Again, word or, where input tax credit has been wrongly availed or utilized for any reason. This is the biggest phrase in GST law. It's one phrase which is most important in entire GST law. Has been wrongly availed or utilized. It is not taking. Section 16 was dealing with taking input tax credit. Now we section 73 comes कि आपने section 49 में जो भी utilization करना था, अब आपने wrongly availed, has been wrongly availed and utilized. Go back to service tax rule 14 before it was amended in 2012. वहाँ था availed or utilized wrongly. Now they have prefixed the word wrongly before utilized and availed. Word is or. It's not and. Notwithstanding latest judgment of Madras High Court के interest नहीं लगता, I disagree with that judgment completely.
That would be against judgment.
No, that judgment is erroneous. In Swift को लागू नहीं लाए नहीं उसके सामने. Now, if a section is continuously using the word or can be read as and by courts to give it a meaning, but where the language is clear, unambiguous, court cannot substitute and for or. In the judgment of Ind Swift versus Union of India, this was a question before Supreme Court under service tax. Rule 14 is exactly same verdict what we have, except that this language is more imperative than the language used in Rule 14. It's more stronger language. The phraseology is more stronger. वहां क्या हुआ, किसी का रेड हुई, चोरी चकारी जो भी नकली बिल सब पकड़े गए। इन स्विफ्ट के बनाते थे, ड्रग्स बनाते थे। They were claiming some exemption under some notification or whatever. जो उनको माल सप्लाई करते थे उनके भी रेड हुई। They confessed कि बिल ट्रेडिंग हमने कोई माल डिलीवर नहीं किया। It's an admitted facts. They went to settlement commission. Settlement commission ने इनको सब कुछ दे के वो बोल दिया हम इंटरेस्ट जमा करा। They did not stop there. They filed an application for clarification before settlement commission, but they simultaneously they filed a writ under Punjab Haryana High Court. Punjab Haryana High Court, DB went through this law. They said this word "odd" should be read as that. हमारी किताबों में तो पैसे लिए हैं, उसे यूज होना की है, इंटरेस्ट फॉर व्हाट? So they accepted the writ and allowed it. Union went to Supreme Court. Supreme Court was seized with three issues: whether High Court should have gone into facts, whether this word "or" used in Rule 14, 3 times it was used in one sentence, can be read as and whether to this kind of a provision can Supreme Court invoke harmonious construction, can it be read down? Punjab Haryana High Court read it down, "or" should mean "and." Therefore, you have availed and utilized, their interest is applicable. The word "or" they read it down as "and."
It should be either.
Now,
It should be either of these two.
now the Supreme Court DB bench was seized with the matter. Whether does it require any harmonious construction? They said no. Harmonious construction rule is applicable, like I told you in the morning, only when there is a chaos, there is conflicting interpretation, and if one interpretation makes the provision unworkable, then court can read it down. So they explained the theory of reading down. Supreme Court, okay, when can a provision be read down by courts? But courts, by reading Rule 14, they have a clear finding that this is not ambiguous at all. It's very clear. We cannot substitute the word "or" with "and." Therefore, they upheld the interest for 5 years. And we have this language exactly Rule 14. It's in Union of India versus Indus Swift. This is summary of this judgment. Now there the Supreme Court virtually passed strictures against Punjab Haryana High Court. How can you go into facts? 50 lakh ब्याज है, 5 crore है. Who the hell are you going to facts? The facts are decided by settlement commission. They have the authority to do it. Like a tribunal gives the finding, unless this finding is perverse, not born from record. You cannot challenge a finding in High Court unless you say this finding is perverse, or the entire evidence has been ignored. Therefore, this entire finding is wrong. Supreme Court said no. This word "or" means "or." That is. Now Supreme Court went further, which we discussed when doing 16. They say once you get entitled to input tax credit and you claim in your credit ledger, you become beneficiary to use that money. What was your intention to use this money? Why do you take it? So once you are intention to use the money, now you say we will not use it. No. The taxability of this event has happened once you took this money for your benefit. Input tax credit. Now whether you utilize it or not, law does not bother about it. The word is "or." Then later on, Rule 14 was amended. They used the word "and" in place of "or" to give benefit to the industry. But that was applicable from the date when they amended. It was not a matter of procedure. They did not amend it retrospectively. So this was a judgment of Supreme Court directly applicable. One of these judgments, which they interpret this phrase wrongly, availed is utilized. Now remember again, we have crossed 16 now. Taking it out. You satisfy 16.1, satisfy 16.2, satisfy 16.4, you are becoming entitled to take input tax credit in your credit line subject to these conditions. You satisfy section 49. I'm not discussing section, but मुझे वो आता नहीं है, CGST versus IGST, I don't know. You know better. और automatic आता है आजकल तो computer वाली. That is utilization. That is you avail and utilize. Now 73 comes कि whether you have done a wrong availment or wrong utilization. What's the difference? अगर आपने wrong avail किया, wrong utilization, अगर आपने 49 violate किया, it's also a wrong utilization. You cannot say मेरा ये पैसा था, मैंने IGC में यूज कर लिए? No, you cannot. Utilization is as prescribed, and that is why a provision like section 49 was put into the statute book. If you will utilize your GST credit under these circumstances. So this is another part. Availed or utilized for any reason other than the reason of fraud or any willful misstatement, suppression of fact to evade tax. Now this evade tax is only for wrongly or availed or utilization. पहले में कोई evasion नहीं था, तो short paid था या under paid था, it's a question of fact. You have to prove nothing. But you have wrongly availed or utilized. For example, other day I was giving example, bill of entry was for Haryana. You are claiming in Delhi. This is to evade tax. You have to prove nothing. So if you have availed or utilized wrongly any input tax credit with an intention to evade tax, section 73 will become applicable. He shall serve notice on the person chargeable with tax which has not been so paid or which has been so short paid, or to whom the fund has irregularly been made, or who has wrongly availed utilized credit, requiring him to show cause as to why he should not pay the amount specified in the notice, along with interest payable under section 50 and a penalty leviable under the provisions of the act or rules made thereunder. Now GST interest is not automatic for section 73. I'm not talking of your returns. If he has to charge you with the interest liability, he has to serve a notice even for section 50. Okay, this is the amount as per me which you have not paid, short paid, or this is refund is erroneously given to you, or this is the input tax credit wrongly utilized or by you. So not only this demand, but also I want to charge you with liability or interest. You have to answer section 50 also. Interest पे लगता है या नहीं लगता. Series of judgments are come if interest has been levied without specific notice under section 50. Interest demand has been quashed by courts. Now once something is quashed by court, and for a reissue of notice, there is no limitation that the money goes. The revenue has lost that money. Unless court cannot extend limitation. Court cannot extend limitation. Supreme Court can do under Article 142. But High Court, if he remands the matter, then most of us take it, the limitation stands extended. But if they quash and don't remand, then in my view, it is subject to, am I right, sir? Subject to limitation? If they simply quash the demand, they don't remand, then it's subject to limitation.
Yes,
Subject to limitation.
If the limitation is over, they can't.
Yes, they can't do it. So courts cannot extend limitation except in remand proceedings. पर वहाँ भी अब कुछ ऐसी कुछ खबरें आ रही हैं कि वहाँ भी कुछ courts are taking a view कि can they override a limitation for concealment by remanding the matter after 20 years. वहाँ भी कुछ ऐसी गड़बड़ कुछ हो रही है कहीं courts में अब कुछ पढ़ते हैं हम लोग. So what the 73(1) says, notwithstanding what you have done in your returns, notwithstanding what claims have been accepted by department, notwithstanding what assessments orders have been given to you, assessment can be of 6 types: 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66. These are the provisions that deal with specific assessments in GST law, followed by 67, 30 and Caesar. आपके सारे असेसमेंट ऑर्डर हो गए, सब कुछ ठीक हो गया, यू आर वेरी हैप्पी. वकील साहब की फीस भी आ गई, वो डीलर भी खुश. But now they come in 73. It is a kind of a reassessment provision. Again, use the language is past perfect, where a tax has not been paid, or short paid, or underpaid, or a fund erroneously given, or any input tax credit availed or utilized, wrongly availed or utilized. They are using a perfect English tense. Therefore, something has already happened. If something has already happened, then it can be nothing but a reassessment. Though they are using the word reassessment. Now, original assessment, the officers have inherent jurisdiction. On a reassessment, the jurisdiction is conditional. He will have to come within these 5 phrases to invoke section 73. Short paid है तो कैसे है उसका नोटिस एक्सप्लेन करे, कम पेड है तो कैसे है, रिफंड इरोनियस कैसे है, और कैसे आपने आईटीसी रॉन्गली अवेलेबल यूटिलाइज किया है. ये 4 ग्राउंड अवेलेबल है, उसको 5वां ग्राउंड को अवेलेबल नहीं है. So whenever you get a notice show cause notice or a pre-consent notice, there will be a complete calculation normally in these notices. Good officers do it. Because otherwise notice will be challenged. It's a non-speaking notice ऐसे बोला गया मेरे को. तो अगर 73 का शो cause notice आपको आना है तो उसको आपको explanation देनी है कि ये आपने क्या किया है. If you are not covered by any of these 4 grounds, 73 is not applicable. It doesn't say or for any other reason. The reasons are very specific and numbered. These are the only reasons where section 73 can be invoked. Let's go to 73(2). The proper officer shall issue a notice under subsection 1 at least 3 months prior to the limit specified in subsection 10 for issuance of order. Let's go to section 10 before I explain to this. The proper officer shall issue the order in subsection 9 within 3 years from the due date of furniture annual return for the financial year to which the tax not be paid, so and so and so. So now there are 3 limitations. One limitation is that these are the reasons. ऑर्डर पास करने से पहले 3 महीने पहले आपको नोटिस देना है. दिस इज अ सैक्रोसैंक्ट लिमिटेशन. अवॉइड यूज दिस शैल इश्यू अ नोटिस एट लीस्ट 3 months prior to passing the order in section 10. The subsection 10 says कि section 73 का नोटिस में 3 साल तक फ्रॉम डेट ऑफ फाइलिंग ऑफ एनुअल रिटर्न वो आपकी डिमांड निकाल सकता है. ये तीनों का तीनों सैक्रोसैंक्ट है. ये तो satisfy all the 3. Supposing it doesn't give you a notice for 3 months, it gives you a 1 month notice. I will challenge this in High Court. It's a limitation prescribed. He cannot curtail my right of 3 months. And there are judgments in service tax law, some judgments where these notices were quashed. They are certified. Amrit Food versus Commissioner Central Excise, there is a Supreme Court judgment of 1 page. It's just 1 page judgment with a confirmed Delhi High Court judgment. They say if a limitation is prescribed, either you do as per law or don't do it. It cannot be done. तो जब आप नोटिस आया पहले आप देखिए कि कौन से साल का है आपका. दैट इज 17-18 का टाइम बार हो चुके. 17-18 का आप कुछ नहीं कर सकते.
अभी है
18 का
नहीं,
अभी 20 थी ना, 19 में होते हैं ना.
नहीं,
सर फरवरी 2020 थी.
अच्छा ओके. तो फरवरी 2023 तक आपका 17-18.
सर एक क्वेश्चन है कि सिर्फ फरवरी 2023 तक ले सकते हैं या मार्च तक ले सकते हैं? एंड ऑफ द
3 years.
3 years from the
Yes,
due
from
date
the
or
date.
नवंबर तक दे रहे हैं नोटिस. तो
3 years from the date of furnishing
ड्यू
of
डेट
annual return. Due date ही है सर. Due date of furnishing.
From the due date, not financial year. You could use
फरवरी है तो फरवरी तक.
मैं कब तो यही पढ़ाते हैं सर. मैं क्या शायद कुछ गलत हो गया और है. गलती पढ़ सकते हैं आप. तो ये 3 महीने की नोटिस पे आपको जो नोटिस आई आपको देखना है कि किस ग्राउंड पे आपको नोटिस दिया गया. ये नोटिस आपको बहुत लोगों को आ रहे होंगे 73 के जो इंस्पेक्टर का बकवास करते हैं ये सीआर बिल्डिंग में. मैं कुछ दिन पहले कंडीशन में उसको झाड़ के आया था. लेकिन क्या बकवास बंदे बैठा रखे, इनको पता ही नहीं क्या है. डराते हैं लोगों को 74 में बुक कर देंगे. नोटिस हो ना. आई मेट दिस लेडी प्रिंसिपल कमिश्नर. शी हरसेल्फ इज अ लॉयर. जस्ट मिस वर्मा विल इशू अ सर्कुलर. मैं कह रही आपके लोग तो डराते हैं लोगों को. यू आर टेरराइजिंग पीपल. मैं मेरे को डराना है. मेरे को पता है माय क्लाइंट विल नॉट कम. यू सेंड व्हाटएवर यू वांट टू डू. अगर नोटिस तो दो मेरे को. क्यों बुला रहे हो आप? किस बात के लिए बुला रहे हो? पैसे लेने के लिए बुला रहे हो हमारे को? हम नहीं आते. जब नोटिस आए सबसे पहले आपको देखना है कि आपका डिन नंबर और जीएसटी नंबर ठीक है. डिन नंबर इज मैंडेटरी एज पर फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर के. यू कैन टीयर इट ऑफ एंड थ्रो इट आउट. आई एम श्योर शी नेवर मेंट इट. शी नेवर मेंट इट. वो अलग बात है. शी जस्ट मेड ए पॉलिटिकल स्टेटमेंट. दूसरा आपको देखना है जो आपको नोटिस दिया कौन से पीरियड का है. उस पीरियड की आपको 74 310 से आपको लिमिटेशन देखनी है. क्या वो लिमिटेशन में है और क्या आपको 3 महीने का लिमिटेशन से पहले 3 महीने का नोटिस दिया या नहीं दिया.
इस संबंध में तो सर एक ही दिन की डेट देते हैं कई बार.
वो संबंध का 73 नहीं है, सेक्शन 70 है. संबंध दे सकते हैं. संबंध प्रोसीडिंग्स आर मोर सीरियस देन 73. Where a notice has been issued for any period subsection 1, the proper officer may serve a statement containing details of tax not paid वगैरह वगैरह. This is what we call pre-consultative notice. सब सेक्शन 1 में नोटिस देने से पहले उसको आपको एक प्री कंसल्टेटिव स्टेटमेंट भेजनी है कि मेरे हिसाब से पैसा आपका बनता है. उस स्टेटमेंट का आपको बहुत ध्यान से एग्जामिन करना है. अगर बनता है तो दे देना चाहिए. गेटिंग ए शो कॉज नोटिस इज मोर सीवियर देन द गेटिंग द प्री कंसल्टेटिव नोटिस. अगर इस स्टेज पे आपको बनता है कि आपका पैसा बनता है, इनपुट टैक्स रिवर्स करना या कैश देना जो भी वो कहते हैं आप उनको करो. दिल्ली हाईकोर्ट की 4-5 जजमेंट आ गई. एक बार डन बाय मिस्टर भाटिया, मिस्टर भाटिया कि वे जैसे प्री कंसल्टेटिव नोटिस इज अ मस्ट. But when you go to High Court on these issues, this means nothing for the client, except he gets more time to file it. But supposing by the time the pre-consent notice is quashed, limitation is over, then everything is over. So if you are on a borderline of a limitation and you are advised to go to High Court, and it is a sure short case, you must approach High Court. Because if High Court passes an order, okay, without this you cannot do it, and in the meantime limitation is over, then everything is over. The service of such statement shall be deemed to be a service of notice such person in the section 1 subject condition that grounds relied upon that tax period other than so on, we can ignore this. The person chargeable with any tax may before service of notice under subsection 1, whether you can make payment. It's a facility given to you. The proper of the receipt of such payment shall not serve any notice. तो शो का नोटिस आप पे सर्व नहीं होगा. अब सपोजिंग आपके पास एक स्टेटमेंट आई, उन्होंने कहा जी 10 लाख रुपए देने आप, आपका सीए या वकील साहब बोलते हैं कि 8 लाख रुपए बनते हैं हमारे, आपने 8 लाख रुपए दे दिए. You have not complied with the pre-consent notice. He can still issue a show cause notice for 2 lakh rupees. So when you take a stand, either pay full or don't pay part. Face the full notice or don't face the notice. Right? अब ये एक्ट में क्यों लिखा गया है? कई बार लगते हैं इसमें लिखने की क्या जरूरत है? Because to charge you with a tax liability, there has to be a charging provision other than section 9. Within this also they have to give in a power कि भी आपको बैलेंस का नोटिस दे सकते हैं. अगर ये नहीं लिखा होता तो हमारे से वकील इंटरप्रिटेशन करते हैं, अपनी नोटिस दे नहीं सकते. लिटिगेशन होता कुछ नहीं, लिटिगेशन में वही होता जो जहाँ लिखा है कि उन्होंने एक्ट में लिख दिया. Where any person against GST में लिमिटेशन कंडोनेशन का प्रोविजन नहीं है एक्सेप्ट 107, कहीं भी प्रोविजन नहीं है कंडोनेशन का. Section 5 Limitation Act is not invoked. Section 5 Limitation Act में we can spend 2 minutes before we close. पहले रिव्यू होता था कि unless Section 5 limitation has not been denied the benefit under a pact, Limitation Act is applicable. But now after Mukri Gopalan judgment interpreting section 29 subsection 2 of Virati section 5 of Limitation Act, courts are clear. The act has to give you power to invoke section 5 Limitation Act. Circumstances हैं लेकिन यहाँ कुछ limitation extent का provision ही नहीं है, तो section 5 इसमें नहीं लग सकता किसी भी कीमत पे नहीं, except Supreme Court Article 142, where any person chargeable tax under section 1 or so on pays the said amount payable section 50 within 30 days. जो भी आपको नोटिस के बाद करना है वो 30 दिन में करना है. If you go on 31st day, if he refuses, you are in for proceedings. For you it's mandatory. For the officer they directed. You can still take it. वहां कहीं लिखेगा वो नहीं दे सकता, लेकिन आपको जो भी करना है 30 दिन में करना है. The proper shall consume less than if any made by interest equivalent to 10%. 10,000 whichever is higher due from such person. Penalty can be 10% or 10,000 due from such person, whichever is higher. तो अगर आप स्टेटमेंट आने के बाद या शोकॉज नोटिस आने के बाद 73(1) का 30 दिन के अंदर आप पेमेंट नहीं करते, you are in for penalty of 10% or 10,000 whichever is higher. But if you pay within 30 days after receipt of statement or 73(1) notice, penalty cannot be levied. This consequence of levying penalty arises only if you refuse to pay within 30 days, right? The proper officer shall issue order under subsection 9 within 3 years from the due date. No, the proper shall after considering the proper shall issue an order under subsection 9 within 3 years from the due date of furnishing of annual return of financial to which is paid date. Up again you look into this 74(10), read very carefully. It conveys a very significant jurisdiction of the proper officer. Under 17(4)(10), he can issue an order only for the circumstances mentioned in 73(1). और किसी भी circumstance के लिए 74(10) में order issue नहीं कर सकते. 3 years from so and so, to which the tax not paid or short paid or input tax credit so and so जो 73(1) के ग्राउंड थे हम 74(10) में लगा दिए. That is अगर कोई अफसर इन ग्राउंड के अलावा 74(10) 73(10) ऑर्डर पास करता है, that is deemed to be without jurisdiction. The 73 is not an original power. It's a kind of a reassessment power in layman's language, and reassessment is jurisdiction is always conditional. जो लॉ मेकर ने आपको कंडीशन लगाई है उसी कंडीशन में आपको चलना है. You cannot say कि मैं कमिश्नर हूं मैं कुछ भी कर लूंगा. No, you cannot do. You do what law says. Last, notwithstanding. I told you in the beginning that this act uses this notwithstanding at almost in every section. They were not clear of the law when they were making. Therefore, somebody said कि notwithstanding और लगा देगा कल को कोई और गड़बड़ कर ले वकील लोग. Notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 6. That is notice, pre-considered notice. Section 8 आपको वो 30 दिन में पेमेंट करनी है जो. Penalty in section 9 shall be payable where any amount of self-assessed tax or any amount of like tax has not been paid within a period of 30 days. I told you 30 days is mandatory. अगर नहीं देंगे पेनल्टी आपको देनी है. Okay, we close today at 73. Tomorrow we recapture 5 minutes 73 and we'll move to 74. Then we'll have 8 or 10 Supreme Court judgments on 73, 74 in GST regime as well as on similar things on the service tax. Thank you very much. Mr. Bhatia will definitely speak 5 minutes and सुनने का अब बढ़ जा सुना दो आप.
इनको
बढ़ जाओ आपने इतना इश्क किया लोगों के साथ हमारे साथ भी किया गजल सुना दो.
नहीं इन लोगों को इनमें से कोई कुछ भी बोले आके
हाँ,
कोई
बोलो
जोक
यार.
सुना. हाँ कोई भी जना आ जाए, कोई अपना जोक सुना दो, कोई
बोलो
गाना
यार.
सुना दो, कोई शेर सुना दो, कुछ भी बोलो.
मैं तुम आज भी बोर हो इतने सालों में भी.
सर एक डाउट है.
हाँ जी नहीं अब डाउट
पहले डाउट क्लियर
करो.
कल करना जो डाउट है कल करना.
पता नहीं मेरे को, कौन लाया है?
जरूर जरूर
हाँ
कौन लाया?